It's 4 p.m. East African time, so we are going to start. So this is the East, Central, and South Africa Microsoft Excel Forum webinar, brought to you by Crisp Excel Training and Consulting, your corporate and individual trainers and also consultants. These are our partners in Kenya and outside Kenya. Today we are privileged to have Boniface. Boniface is a renowned business analyst. His areas of expertise is data visualization, data analysis, and corporate training. He is not a stranger in this webinar. He has presented before. Please follow him on his social media, that is on LinkedIn and Twitter. I'll share this on the webinar. The topic of today is data cleaning and visualization using Power Query.
Okay, so I guess the topic is about Power Query, data cleaning, consolidating data with Power Query, and maybe creating dashboards using the help of Power Query to connect your data. So this is the data we're going to deal with. I have data like this. So this is sales data where we have retailer ID, invoice, date, region, state, city, product, price, units sold, total sales, operating profits, and operating margins. So our query can help us clean this data. And as you see here, based on this, I have data for 4 months. And I also have new data. So assuming you're working in a place where data is pulled from an ERP system every month, so it means you'll have new data and you'll have past data. So the first task I'm going to do is to show you how to consolidate all these sheets using Power Query. Then we'll move to the next one. So the first step is going here. So you go to get data, then you get data from a folder. So there are two options, and the first option is to get data from a folder. Then the other option is to get data from Excel workbook. So I'll start with the first option where I can get my data from the folder. So this is what I do. So assuming you have your folder, which is this folder. So this is my folder, Crispo. So I'll go to Excel, then go to data, get data from file, from folder. Then I want this current data. Then after some minutes, I'll show you how you can link now new data, and you won't have to repeat the steps you did in the previous. So we're going to link current data, and I'll use Power Query to consolidate. So when you do that, a screen like this pops up. Then you have these various options: transform data, load to or load, and combine and transform. So the first option is where you can clean your data and you can transform before you load to pivot tables or tables. So we're going to go with the first option, combine and transform data. So now when you click that option, a pop-up window like this will appear. Then it shows you the first file. So for instance, we have this file. So these are the same files as these ones from our previous window. They are the same files from here. So, and they're now showing up here. So you'll click the first one. So for instance, in my data, I have April. My data is in tables. So I click the first one, then press OK. So when you do that, a window like this will open. And your data is combined. So that's how you combine different sheets using Power Query. So now we have this data. So remember, I just clicked a few things and they're now combined. So assuming now you wanted to use the sheet name. So you see they are called April.xls. So now suppose I want to use this as my month reference. So what you do, and now this is the part of data cleaning. What you do, you can always come here, and then you can remove the dot, this extension. So we can do that. So what you do, you can always click like this, then you can copy this, and then we can remove the extension name by going to transform. Then there's a place called replace. I should be able to see that right now. So find and replace, where is this? Replace values. So I'm going to find this extension and replace it with nothing. So when you do that, Power Query will remove it. So now, remember Power Query automates your steps. So these are the steps that happen. So it's more like automating your process. So anytime in the future when new data comes in, you can never repeat this. So using that, I now have removed this and I have my month. So we have January, March, Feb, April. So another thing you can do with Power Query, you can always change the names. So we can call this month Taylor ID. Then you see, you always have an option to change the data types. So when you click this option, you can select your data. For instance, let's say we wanted it to be percentages. Then you can make it percentages. If you wanted it to be decimal numbers, you can do that using that step. So for this case, we want it to be whole numbers. So using this icon, you can change the data type. Then there is dates. So Power Query helps you to rename your data or to change your data to the dates if they're not formatted as dates. So you always choose dates, time if you want. So for this case, I'm going to choose the date. So the invoice is a date. So something else. So if we wanted the dates, the month of this date, you can always hover your mouse here, then use this option. Like you click from the top, then use this option. So from here you can select name of the day, end of the day, start of the week, or month, name of the month. So suppose I wanted to know which month is or which month does this date belong to. I'll go to that option. So month, name of the month. Now I'll have a different column where I have, based on the dates, I have my month. So, and this should be here. Wait a minute. So I think it has changed to names. So suppose you want to reverse the steps you did using Power Query, you can always go here, view, then you can remove a step if you want to. So what if I wanted a new column now for the month? So that's what I was trying to do initially. So you do this, then you add a column. Then from that now, you can choose the name of the month. So your date will remain, but there'll be a new column with the name of the month. And this is it. So it means I can remove this extension if I don't want it. So to remove a column in Power Query, you go here, then you can remove a column like that. So something else, suppose your data has spaces and you want to clean it so that if you use functions like VLOOKUP or SUMIF, there won't be errors. So to make sure you do such a thing for stuff like this now, you have the retailer ID, which is unique. Suppose you wanted to, let's say, SUMIF or VLOOKUP in your other data, and you don't want them to have white spaces or extra spaces, then you can transform your data using this option. You right click here, then you use this option. Use these options. You can transform. Wait a minute. Let me look at my options. You can replace values, you can move, and fill, and replace values. I'm looking for an option to transform. I'm not seeing it, but I'll get there. So let's go to the next one, then I'll get back to that. Suppose you have data like this, and you want to split your data so that maybe we can have, you see, this data has the gender and the where. So suppose I wanted men's to be different, then women's to be different. Like suppose I wanted to split by delimiter. In Excel, you have that option where you can split your data using delimiters. So in Power Query, you can do the same by splitting. So you can always come here and split column, split by delimiter. Then for this case, let's say I wanted the gender to come first, then the other words to be separate. So I'll split by space because the first thing that can help us here is space. So we have this space. So in this option of splitting your data, you have various options. You can split by colon, comma, equal sign, semicolon, space, tab. So for this case, we're splitting by space. So when we do that, we can have men's differently, and we can have athletic footwear differently. So that's how you can achieve splitting your data using Power Query. So suppose I didn't want this, or suppose I realized that this step is something I didn't really needed to do. I can always go back and get back to the way your data was like. Then we have data like this, the prices. So suppose I want to change the data type, you'll always choose the option. So before I change that, it had this option of 1.3, it was a decimal. So to change to whole numbers, you can always click this button, then select from there. This one is okay, total self. So this is decimal. I want to be in whole numbers and do the same. Operating, I want to be in whole numbers and I want the same. I want this to be decimal. So there's something also in Power Query where you can promote your headers. Suppose I wanted this line to be my first headers. Suppose my data didn't come with headers. So you can always go here, then promote this line, this first line to be headers. So you use this option, you promote the first line to be headers. So the first line is now headers. See? Let me go back. Port locker is our first row. Suppose I want it to be headers. You go here, then they now headers. But for this case, you don't need that. But in some cases, while cleaning your data, you will need a step like that. So in your data, suppose you didn't want some of the data here. For instance, let's say the first 50 rows are off and they don't really need to appear in your data. So you can always go to these options. You remove rows. You can remove the top row. So when you click on this option, you have the power to choose the number of rows you want to remove. So let's say I wanted to remove the first 50. Then you can choose that option. Then you select the number of rows you want to remove. Because while dealing with some data, maybe the first rows are headings and titles or something you don't need. So you can always remove. And this option comes with something nice. If in the future you want to change, you can always click on this button that looks like setting and adjust. So let's say I just wanted to remove the first, then you can do that. You can also remove the bottom rows. So and remove the bottom rows from here. Let's say I wanted to remove the bottom 100 because I just feel like bottom 100 rows are off and I don't really need to have them in my data. I can do the same. So it means with Power Query, you have an option to remove the top and the bottom. So all these activities are good when you're dealing with your numbers because in some case you really don't need some rows. So now let's look at this data. So our data looks like this. Suppose for my report, I didn't want to show everything. Let's say, for instance, I just want to show the retailer and the total sales. What do? Because remember, at the end of the day, this data will load to Excel. So what you do, you always have this option, choose columns. So when you choose columns, you can choose the columns you want to appear. For instance, I want retailer and I want the total sales only. All the other data is maybe useless to me. So when you do that, you'll only get two columns, the retailer and the total sales. So I want this to be text already. So that's a powerful option for Power Query. You can always choose the data you want to appear in your report, and you can always use this option. This option is so important. So let's say for our case today, I want to see the data for retailer. I want to see total sales and operating profits only. So my data will look like that. But now, what if I needed more of this? Let's say I have selected the two options, total sales and operating profits, and I notice that this is really not what I wanted. Then you can add other rows here. You can select something else, let's say product, because it makes more sense to know the product you're selling so that you can achieve this total sales. So now I have this. I have a retailer who sells this, and this is the total sales. So there's another powerful tool for Power Query called unpivoting your data. This is what I mean. Suppose I wanted to see only one line here. For instance, I want my data to be like this. For this retailer, in one row, I want to see the total sales or only the operating profits. So that option is called unpivoting. It's also available in Power Pivot. So you can always select. So to unpivot your data, you select the first column, then the next one. Since I want to unpivot this so that I'll only have this line for description and one line here. And the line can only be for operating profits or total sales. That's very useful when you want to use your data to make a dashboard. And this is what you're going to do. You select this and this, then you right click. So when you right click, you have these options, group by and pivot columns and pivot other columns. So other columns is the unselected columns. So when I do that, I now can unpivot my other columns. And I now have a criteria. Now this is like a criteria. This is like a criteria I'm using. And I have my units here. So how is this useful? This is so useful when you want to filter your data later. For instance, let's say we want to see all the operating profits without the total sales. Then it's easy to see that, but the way the data was in the beginning, that it was hard to see that. So it means if I have my data like this, I can easily load to a pivot table and I can analyze it. So let's do that so it can make more sense. So after cleaning your data like this, remember this is whole numbers, we can now load to Excel. So you always go to these options, close and load, close and load. So if you want to load to a table, then you can choose this option. But if you don't want to load to a table, then you can choose these other options. So the other options are this. So let's say I only want to create connection. I don't want to load my data into this file. Then I can choose this option. I can also load my data into a pivot table report instantly. I like using this option because in the future, when you want to refresh your data, it's easy. So let's go to this option of loading it to a pivot table report. So now we have our data loaded. So it means we can analyze it. And since we unpivoted our data and we have two criteria, we can see the operating profit and we can see the total sales for the product. So now it's easy to analyze our data. So Power Query has easily helped us know our total profits. And I guess the best way to see your data is always getting the 1,000 separators. So to get that, the best way or the best method I like using is going to custom. Then I always like using this because it's not the same as the option where there'll be decimal points, but it's optional. So now our data has an operating profit of 159 million and total sales of the same, 442 million. So remember, we got here using Power Query. So where's our data source? So Power Query is a clean way where you can present your data because our data source is now here. When you go to queries and connection, our data source is here, which means in the future, when new data comes in, we can easily refresh and there'll be changes in this. So there is this option in Excel where when you refresh your data, this freezes like this. So you can always remove that using this option so that when you refresh your data, this doesn't change the size. So remember, initially we were looking at how Power Query can help us clean the data and how it can help us consolidate data. So we consolidated data from these sources this month, April, Feb, Jan, March. So the beauty of Power Query is that in future, when we have new data coming in, we can never repeat the same process. So for instance, in my file, I had this as my current data. So the data you're looking at right now is this one, April, Feb, Jan, March. And the sum of the total sales is 442, it's 82,500. So Power Query help us achieve the consolidation. Now, suppose we have new data. For instance, we have this new data and we want to add a new month to our data. How can we do that? So the best way we can see this is maybe analyzing this data in terms of months so that we can look at a new month when new data comes in. So to achieve that, I can go to my steps. Remember, I removed some columns here. I can go back to choosing the columns. Let's say I wanted to see the month name. So this is the month for the sales. But remember, initially, I created initially here. This is the beauty of Power Query. You can always go back. Initially, I named my source name as month. So now this will help me know when new data comes in. So when I removed other columns, actually initially I removed this. So you can always track your steps and remove the step where you deleted a column. So it should be somewhere here. So I can always delete a step because I now want to get back to this file, to this column. So let me see if I can get that here. So I deleted it previously in these steps. So let me trace it back. So maybe here, let me remove the steps where I removed columns. So now it's back. And I guess when I'm choosing this option, I can get it month. So now this will help us know if there is new data. So remember, you can always move a step, you can always change a step, you can always delete a step. So you can always walk around with the steps. So like here, I've missed a step. So like I now have to go back to what I did wrong. So if my data was like that, and I want it into my Excel, so I can go back and get it here. So I'm doing this so that I can see when new data comes in, what could happen to my report. So let's do this again. Pivot table, and I want to see months, and I want to see total sales, and maybe I want to see operating profit. So I have how many months? I have 4 months. So when May comes in, it will be added here, and Power Query can help us achieve that. So let's do this so that it can get more interesting. Let's say we wanted to start a chart that maybe for trend, where we can see our trend for this month. And I like removing this. Actually, let's say we didn't have that, and we don't need this grid line, so we can delete. So now we have 4 months. Suppose new data comes in, can Power Query pick the new month so that we can have a new month of May here? Let's see. That should be able to happen. And how will that work? It means now in our data, in our current data, I'll have to bring a new month here. And when I do that, a new month will automatically add to my data. And what will happen is all these steps, the data for the new month will follow these steps, and I'll never repeat doing these steps. So let's add. So I'll go to my folder, and I want to have May copied in my data. So now, assuming May data comes in, and so the big question is, when May data comes in, will Power Query fix the new data? Will that happen? So that's what I want to see, because I've added May. Initially, it wasn't here, and then I'll add June. So what we do, remember, we've already gone through these steps using Power Query. So it means when I refresh this data, May should be added automatically. This should be the case. So let's see. So as I said, we now have May. So this is the beauty of Power Query. It helps us achieve this. So remember, initially I didn't have May in my data, and then I added to the folder, and Power Query helped me achieve that. So when I started this, I had this month. I didn't have May, but when May is added to my folder, when I click refresh, I have May's data. So it means when you automate this process, anytime new data is added to your folders, and let's say you had a dashboard. Let's say you had a dash, can call it dash. Your dashboard will always auto update. So now we have our dashboard. Maybe it's a dashboard like this, where we have the trends, and call it the trends. And we have a new month. So let's see the next thing. What if we added June? June is not in our data, but all you need to do is to go to your folders, then add a new month, just like that. So we have June's data. So when I copy June's data here, when I go to my current data and add June here, remember there's no June right now. When I add June, I just need to click and refresh in my dash. And we have June. So that's the beauty of our query. So I guess we're done with the steps where you can add new data to a folder, where when new data comes in, these steps are automated and you'll never have to repeat this. So that was the first step. Any questions?
I can't see any question, but I have a question for you.
Yeah.
But if you have a question, you can put it on the chat or you can raise your hand. I'll unmute you. The data that you're adding in the folder, what if it has a different structure, like the columns are interchanged, or it has an extra column, or it doesn't have the same structure as others? What happens?
It can't work.
Okay.
What will happen is you'll get errors. So these steps happens when you have data that are maybe from an ERP system, data that comes in with the same format. So mostly when you're making your data, or when you're doing analysis of data so that you can use it to make dashboard, you'll expect that you always receive your data in the same format, where you have month as same, these names, the month name, retailer, product, total sales. So if something new comes in, you'll get an error.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is best for data that are same.
Okay. I thought it was necessary for you to raise that. Otherwise, people would put in data with different structures in that folder, and when they don't see the result, they will think that Power Query is not working.
Yeah. So that was the first step of using Power Query, where we pull data from different sheets, and we combine it, we consolidate it to one file. So there's another option. So the first option is where you get data from folders. What if you have data in sheets? For instance, you have data in an Excel workbook. Let's say these are our data now. Let's say we have data like, I'll use this. I'll use this one. Let's say we have data like this. Let's say we didn't have our data in sheets. Let's say we had our data in sheets like this, and we wanted it now to consolidate it, or to pull it using Power Query, or we wanted to use Power Query to analyze our data. So I'll do that first. What I can do is I can add this sheet to one file. Let me add two sheets. So let's say I want April, June, and May. I'll use three months, and I can move. By the way, in Excel, I hope everyone knows you can always move data to a sheet one. Let's say I want to move this file April to May or to Jan. So you can always go to that option, and you can bring it here. And so this is April. Actually, I duplicated April. Let's say I wanted to move Jan to April. So all my data are named April. So I'll repeat the same. So I want to move to, let's say I want to move to this new sheet. So I'll choose that option and move to end. So now I have that data. Let's say I want to move another month. Let's say June. Then I'll do the same move end and Swabia. Let's say now I wanted to analyze this data. Let's say I wanted to analyze this data using Power Query, but without using an option of, let's call this Jan, maybe. Then we can call this Feb. Let's work with consecutive months. let's say now I wanted to use Power Query, pull data in the same worksheet. So you can always do the same using the same worksheet. Initially, I use a different worksheet, a blank worksheet. Let's say now I wanted to pull this data to Power Query. So I can always go to this option. Let's say create a new sheet. Then I won't go with this option actually. Let me use this option, the first one, the first option. If you want to clean this data, you can always go here, data, then get data option, or from range or table. So let me get back to that again. See, when you go to data option, this bar, you have this option to get data, where you can get even data from web, or this option from table. So when you have a table, you can always pull data from the same table. So now I want to get data from my table, this table. So I'll go to this option from table. Then now I have my data. So if I want to clean this data alone, I can always do that, where I can change this. You see, this date doesn't appear like a real date. It has a time. So you can always change this. And if you wanted also to add other things, you can always add. And remember, as I said initially, you can always unpivot like that. I repeat that maybe. You can always unpivot the numbers. You can always unpivot other columns. Or I guess I did it wrong. Let me go back. You select the data you choosing. Then you can unpivot the rest. So I want to unpivot the rest so that I can use a single criteria to look at those. So unpivot other columns. You can always go to that option and call this criteria or value. So that's another option of Power Query. So our first option was getting data from the folder. The next one, you can get data direct from a sheet. And another option is you can get data from Excel sheet. So let's choose that option right now. So suppose we had a new file. Let's say a new Excel sheet like that in a different sheet. So let's say it's a new workbook. We have a new workbook, and we want to get data from this workbook. Where in this workbook I have Jan, Feb. I want to get this data, this only, because in some cases data are usually arranged in sheets. So to do that, you can always go to a blank workbook like this. Then you can go to this option, get data. So last time I went to this option, folder. So this time I'll get data from Excel workbook. So you can do the same. So now I want to get data from this sheet. So let's say so that it can be easier for us, I can save this sheet in this folder where I have my other data. So let me have this sheet here. So this is my sheet. Now I want to get the data from that sheet. So you go to this option and get data from Excel worksheet, and this is our sheet. And do that. Then you can import. So the difference between this and the other one is the other one you were getting data from a folder, and now we're getting data from a sheet. And if a new sheet is added in the future, it can also be added here. So I guess we'll add a new sheet so that we can see that. Right now we have 2 months. We have Jan and Feb. I don't need this data, so this is useless to me. I won't select them. So I'll select Jan and Feb. Then as always, if you don't choose this option if you're cleaning your data or if you combining your data. Remember, this step is to consolidate our data so that we can maybe use it to make something. So now we can transform our data. Actually, I went to transforming option. So when data is loaded in sheets, they'll always appear like this. So you can transform them individually, or you can transform them together. So now these are like queries. They're assumed for a query, name them queries. If I want to combine them, I can combine them here using this option. Let's say I want to combine them so that I can analyze this. So if you want to combine sheets like this, you can always go to, you right click on this space, then new query. Then you can use this option. You can append queries as new. So from this table, so you have this option. Select your data from two tables, then you select the first table, and this, or from three or more tables. So let's select this option. So you use shift, then you select all, then you add. So I'm doing this before because my data is the same. They have similar headers. And now you can combine them. So remember, this option combines data. Initially, using the folder way, by selecting the data in the same folder, they combine automatically. For this case, you combine your data based on how it appears here. Then we can rename them. Let's say consolidated data. Let's say for this case, I want to use it to make a dashboard, quick dashboard, because I need to visualize this data, and I don't need to see everything. I just want to see. Let's say I want to see retailers, city, and total sales. Then I can do that. So now I'm going to this option where I always choose the close and load to. And then for this case, since I want to make a dashboard, let's say using this data, I select pivot report again. And now Power Query has helped me get this data this way. So now, so this makes sense. I'll make a dashboard using this data. Let's say now I want to visualize my data. I've cleaned my data, I've consolidated, I've removed spaces, I've done all that. Now I want to see the total sales in all the states or the cities. I can always use that option. So I can call this PVT. I'll make a quick dashboard, and I don't like grid lines. You can always remove them. If you want them, you can have them. So let's say now I want to analyze this data, and I want to visualize in my dash. After doing all those cleaning, so when I'm making a dashboard, I like having something like this, like as the first, something like let's say my topic. I want to tell people this is self. I want to tell people maybe this is sales data. So you can always use this option, and you can say sales dash 2024. Then you don't need the car here. So I don't need a field, I don't need a line. I can always choose that option. And now I have this. I like using this Aptos. Aptos is disappearing today. So I guess my office doesn't have Aptos. So let's use calibrate. And I want to increase the font for this. So this is the interesting part. See, cleaning data is a bit Disneyland job, but this is the interesting part. And you can always use a lot of options like icons if you want to add icons. Say for sales, you want to add an icon for money. can always add that. So I want people to be happy with my report because my report should be visually appealing. So what's really happening here? I want to separate them. So this is a sales dashboard generating us the monies we want. So you can always use icons to get your dashboard to be eye-catching. See, you're dealing with data, something like that looks good is very important than the numbers. Is that true, Crispo?
Yeah, that's true.
We'll always look at the appearance. So yeah, so let's say we were building that dashboard, and now I want to present my data. So in Excel or using pivot table, so that once the 1,000 separator here, you can always select all of this, then go to. So don't use the option where don't use this option. It will change when your data changes, but when you do it from here, your data will be formatted right. So I don't want this. I want this option. And now I want to maybe use a bar chart. You can always insert and bar chart. So I don't need all of this. So you can always right click here, then hide all field buttons and delete this. And maybe remove this. And I have my first chart, but my chart doesn't look good. So to make your chart look more nice, you can always do this and remove the grid lines. Yeah, so it now looks like this. So I like it. I like when I sort it from smallest to largest so that it can appear like this. But now, suppose there is a outlier, small numbers. What do you do? So the best way to visualize your data, because at the end of the day, it's just about visualization. The best way is to use this kind of display, logarithm scale. So when you use logarithm scale, your visualization, the bars will almost look the same size. Since our agenda while making dashboard is visualization, I think it's best this way. For some people, for instance, I like it when it's like this, and I don't like it when I have grid lines. So I always remove this from my charts, and I don't like when I have these lines too. So no lines. So I have my first bar, and this is it. So for today, let's say we needed a line here just for visualizing. Then you can always go back and have a solid line. So now, and our data is presented like this. It makes more sense when we have, since I removed the scale, make more sense when we have data labels. So you can always add data labels, maybe at the center. So when you click on your data labels, you always have the option to make it to be at the center. Then maybe you can change the color here, maybe to be white. And then we can increase. So to increase the size in Excel, don't type the sizes here, always use this button. Then because they overlap like this, there's always this option where you go here, alignment, then untick this. And now we have our first dashboard. And this is total sales per city. So suppose we wanted a search title, then you can say sales per city. So remember, we use Power Query to get our data here, and now we're visualizing our data. So suppose I also wanted, remember this data is connected to Power Query direct. There's no table, just from Power Query pivot. So let's say the next thing I wanted is to visualize my data. Let's say let's say I wanted to see total sales without minding the city, then I can achieve that by this. So let's say I want this number because this is a strategic number. This is a very important number. So to do that, I always like connecting my data to another row. So what I do, I'll say equals to C17, C18. So I'm doing that because most of the time Power Query will, when you try to connect your data, let's say using this option, I want to see total sales. When you connect directly, from here to pivot table, can always be a challenge. It will give you the formula is missing a range of reference or something. So what you do, always go to a next page, then link it to here. And now we can connect our data here. Then we can say these are total sales. So this should be here equals to total sales. Now it's added. Then we can always increase this using this option. So in my dashboard, I want to be able to see my most important numbers. Let's see here. So I can always copy this and paste here. Total sales. So let's make this to be blank, to be white. Then I can represent my total sales here. Then let's say I didn't need any lines. So basically, this is a simple dashboard where I have sales per city, I have the total sales, and you can always change the colors, and you can do a lot of stuff with this. So these are my most important numbers. I want them to be visually good looking. And to make this more nice, we always insert slicers. And always choose the option. So you see my slicers go to pivot table. So this is not the normal pivot table. It's pivot table for our query. So which you can choose, let's say, want our slicer to be 6. And choose that. Then we now have it here. We have our pivot table, we have the slicers, and we have this chart. So because of time, I want to make a complex dashboard, but at least this makes some sense. And if you select this, it doesn't change right now because we haven't connected. So you always have this option of making a connection here so that when you select this, you can always change. So what's happening here? Our connection is not working. Maybe because this is not, maybe because I connected my pivot table or my selector to the pivot table from the Power Queries pivot table. So because of time, and it's working now. Actually, I'm wondering what the problem is. Let's see. Yeah. Actually, when I report connection, I can see everything. And let's put it here and see if it works. So it works. So we've used Power Query to help us create a dashboard, simple dashboard, and we've connected our data using Power Query from different sources. So Power Query can help us achieve a lot. So I guess I can now take questions.
Thank you for the presentation, Boniface. Cecilia, you had raised your hand. You can unmute yourself. I've made.
Okay, thank you, Crispo. Thank you very much, Boniface, for the good presentation. I have two questions. The first one, I didn't saw how you insert the icons. Did you import from the laptop, from the computer, or you chose it within the Excel? The second one,
Yep.
yeah, the second one, what if I need to have my dashboard online so that other people can also access and see the progress? Is that possible? Thank you.
Yeah, so let's start with the first question. So to insert icons, you always there's this option. You go to insert, then you go to, can you see my screen, right?
Yes, I can
Yes,
see.
yes.
So you see this icon option. So there's a lot of things you can choose from here. You can choose all these.
Oh,
Let's say, for instance, you
okay.
want to choose let's say this one. Then you can use it in your data. You can insert it here.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, there's an amazing one. If you are doing let's say a shipment dashboard, you can also add tracks. By the way, you see this option, you can search. For example, let's say you want tracks or fleets or shipment. Let me go with shipment. If you search it online, you can find it. Unfortunately, I'm not using for today. I'm not using Excel 365, but Excel 365 has an option where you can search and you can get everything you want. So I guess that's it. The next one, if you want to get your data online, right? So I assume maybe you're using a SharePoint where your data is in a shared folder and your data is now online. A file like this can be accessed by many people. That's what you're saying, right?
Yes.
Then it will work. It will work. It will work. You can do that. It will work.
I think the other option is to use Power BI.
Yeah, the other option is Power BI.
Yeah, Power BI you
Okay.
can publish your dashboards in an intranet page of your company, and then people can see progress and they can download the dashboards. Otherwise, you can use Excel online.
Yeah.
Okay.
The beauty
Okay.
about Excel is that it's easy to share files. So you see this file right now. If I share it to you, this file will come with a dashboard. But for a query,
Okay.
I don't think you can see the data source like here. If you had access to this file, you see the data is here. And if it's in a shared folder, you can access this data. Maybe you want to analyze too, or you want to look at it if it makes sense. Excel is more flexible. That's what I can say. But yeah, it depends on you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Anyone else with a question? My question is, as people like to raise their hands, is I saw when you want to create, to consolidate data from different worksheets, you have to use another workbook. Is there a workbook to consolidate data that is in different worksheets without opening an extra workbook and getting data from there?
So you're saying, wait, let's say we have data in the same workbook. Like for instance, I actually remember I had two options where the first was picking data from the same Excel, like this one now, this file. I was picking data from this sheet. So you're asking if I can pick data from this without going to another workbook, without using a blank sheet.
Yeah,
yeah, it's possible.
Yeah, without using a blank sheet. Use a blank sheet, and then in case you add match as an extra worksheet, it will show in your consolidation.
Yeah, it's possible. Though it's like now, I think it's more like a circular reference thing, because put it this way, I'll be getting my data here, then I'll say from workbook, then I'll actually click the same workbook I'm in. It could bring problems, maybe it could be nice, but I don't usually prefer that option, but it works. You can see it here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So any other person with a question today? You have done a perfect 1 hour from 4 to 5. We are on time.
Yeah.
Any person with so I don't think there's any person with a question. You are going to share the final workbook.
Yeah, I will.
And then the last question that we always ask presenters is for any person who wants to, or who is admiring your skills and they would like to be where you are, what are the steps and how do they become a good business analyst like you are?
Number one, practice. I think you see when you do something daily, frequently, like when Excel is like your canvas, you'll be good. If Python is your canvas, you'll be good. It's only practice, because you see these steps, it's easy to miss something even when you're explaining it to people online. But like there was a step where I was trying to transform, where initially it's here now. You see, initially I came here, and I wanted to show you how you can clean your data, you can trim. You see that option where you can clean to remove spaces, you can capitalize like this. But when I did that, I knew it's here based on experience, repetition. But if it's something I hadn't done it before, I couldn't do it. So I'll say the best way to learn is to repeat, to do it daily. If you're passionate about something, give it 100%. Do it daily. Make it your best friend, because when you have passion for something, it's easy to thrive in it. But when you're struggling to do something, or when you hate doing something, you can never be good.
Okay, good advice. Any resources for somebody who is starting new?
YouTube, and maybe they can go to his post page.
Okay.
Yeah, but YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube. It's true. YouTube has good resources.
Yeah, and connecting with people who have the same, who are interested in the same field, because you can always learn from people. Actually, the best way to learn is from people.
True.